Good evening, everybody. Thank you very, very much for everybody coming along tonight to the beautiful Chapter 1 bookstore. I'm just curious before we begin, can I have a show of hands if you have never been to the Chapter 1 bookstore before? Oh, wow. Well, I hope you all agree it's absolutely fantastic. And I think the first time we came in here, it's one of those hideaways from home that's in the middle of Manchester. So I'd like to welcome you all to our 7th Entrepreneur Social, but it's also the first launch of our Entrepreneurs for Good. Entrepreneurs for Good is a UK movement and is part of a global organisation called Entrepreneurs Institute, and we exist to bridge the gap between profit and purpose. So there's lots of companies out there that are making a difference, and there's lots of companies out there that are making a lot of money. And we're trying to combine the two together and showcase and highlight people who are creating very well respected, very established companies, but do it with heart and do it with pride and make decisions that will benefit everybody and not just themselves. Can I just have a show of hands at the back? Can you all hear me, or do you want it a bit louder? A little bit louder? Can I hold it closer? Oh, reverb. So in total, we have 51 different countries around the world running these events every single month. There's about 8 in the UK. We normally have some beautiful pictures and presentations to show you, but in our new event, we're just trialing things a little bit different. Manchester is one of the first ones in the UK that came on board. We're in 7 continents, so we've still got 1 continent to go to a global. And it is part of an organisation that's run by Roger Hamilton, who is on a global mission at the minute to re-establish what education means and to redefine schools around the world so that children, as they're growing up a bit more rounded than maybe how they are at the current present time. It's a bit more difficult in the UK, and so our focus right now is on, as I said, showcasing and highlighting to everybody that you can run very good businesses and at the same time do everything for the greater good. So tonight we have Kirsty Almeida. Okay, I'm curious. Raise your hand if you have heard of Kirsty before, and switch around if you've never heard of her at all. Okay, a couple of hands. So Kirsty was the co-founder and creator of the Wonder Inn, which was a venue just around the corner from here. It touched many people's hearts in Manchester. She has an incredibly rich history and story to share. And tonight, after having a discussion with her, we're really focusing on the power to believe and how every single thing, every business, every music, every form of creativity that ever exists started with a core belief and a core idea. So I'd like you all to welcome tonight, with a round of applause, Kirsty Almeida.
Thank you.
So just so people are aware, we're going to have about 30 minutes of discussion, a little break after that for some time to get a refreshment, and then some questions and answers, and then Kirsty's going to do a couple of songs from her latest album afterwards as well to see you off into the night. So we just want to start off really. I think everyone's journey begins somewhere around education, and education takes many forms, from academic education to life education. A couple of things surprised me when I spoke to you originally. Not many people have been expelled, and not many people have been expelled more than once. So I think it would be really nice to just start off, how does somebody gain and learn education whilst at the same time being expelled from 2 different places? And just share your story and your journey from an educational viewpoint.
So, I had an extremely varied background because my father worked for oil, so we traveled a lot. He was an engineer and a project manager, and we traveled all over the world. And because of that, it meant that I went to many different schools, and it meant that from each school that I went to, I had to make friends very, very quickly and lose friends quite quickly too. And because of that, I think through my education period, the thing that was really important to me was music. And music was kind of the thing that just became, it was just really natural. So it was really easy for me to harmonize and make music and make sounds and listen to music and listen to international music. And everywhere that I went seemed to flavor and enhance the music that I was, that I felt inside. But because of that, it meant that every school that I went to, I just headed straight for the music department because I knew that if I was in the music department, I was welcomed. Because if you could play music, then you're in. And if you can't play music, then it's a little bit more difficult. So I think education became this place where I just had to tick the boxes. It was like go to a new school, then I just had to prove myself in music. If I could do that, then I was in a situation where I was liked and I had friends and it was manageable. When I was getting older, I started to realize that education was, I'm going to say questionable, because I didn't have anyone making me tick the boxes, because I could change the story every time. So I'd go to a new school, then it'd be a new story. And also I was bullied quite heavily when I was a kid. So I lived in Scotland for a long time, and I lived in Scotland during the 80s. I was Catholic by default, which meant that living in a Protestant area made it quite difficult for me. And then, so I kind of started deciding that education was a different thing. It wasn't learning, it was learning how to get through. And then when I got to, there was a lot of competitions when I was a kid, so there was a lot of dance competitions, so I did that. There was a lot of music competitions. So I did the competitions, and as long as I was kind of ticking my own boxes, then that made sense to me. And the rest didn't. Maths was really easy, so I just managed to... Can we take some of the treble off my voice, because it's going to start feeding back? Thanks. Maths was really easy, so I just ticked all the boxes for that, because that made loads of sense. Physics was easy. The things that I found easy, I did. The things that I didn't find easy, I didn't do. And then when I got to about the age of 12, my parents decided, who were also at the time going through a pretty, I'm going to call it a hideous divorce, because it just went on and on and on and on and on. It was like EastEnders. And there was paranoia, and there was stress, and there was screaming. And when you're raised in a situation like that, school is not the most important thing. It's just getting through and getting by. And then by the time I got to 12, my parents decided that for my education, it was really important to settle down, which just seemed mad to me. But yeah, so we had to stay in one country. So we stopped in Gibraltar, which is where I'm really from. And but then at that stage, everyone spoke Spanish, and I didn't speak Spanish anymore. Or I didn't, Spanish wasn't fluent to me at the time. And Spanish was the language of the school. Outside of school, so when you were in lessons, it was all in English, and then you get to the playground and it'd all be in Spanish. So at that stage, I just started creating. So I did a lot of music, I did a lot of art, I did a lot of painting on the walls. I was in an orchestra, I was in bands, I was just doing all of that stuff, and school got more and more difficult for me. Then my mother left when I was 13. I didn't see her again till I was 26. And then my dad left when I was 14 or 15 and left me with his new wife, who was 20-something. So at that stage, try and tell the 14-year-old girl that she needs to go to school every day. It just, it didn't make any sense. So I was going to school, but I didn't really have the right uniform, so then that was making me feel really uncomfortable. And then there was no one really making me go to school, so I was trying to go to school, but it didn't make any sense. So I just kind of stopped going to school. Then I started posting in my homework, because I still had this, inherent thing that my parents had put in me. It was like the fear of a career. Like I had to have a career. And the only thing, I had this thing in my head that kept saying, you've got to get a career. If you don't get a career, you're not going to make it in life. And the only way that I could see that you had to get a career was what I'd been told, which was to go to school. So then there was no point in going to school other than this fear of a career. So then I started posting in my homework and feeling like that was enough. It was like, well, if I post the homework, like, so people would come and see me and say, oh, we did this in physics today. And I'd be like, all right, well, that's easy. Because I was definitely like a 9A student, or what was classed as a 9A student then. So I would just do the homework and post it in and thought that was sufficient. Didn't see why that wasn't an option. And then got called into the school, and the headmistress said, Kirsty Almeida, you've been to school 38 days out of 290. And I said, well, that's pretty good, isn't it? Like, it's more than what I thought I'd been to school. And she said, well, we have standards. And I said, but how are my grades? And she said, well, the grades are, they're good. Like, you did your mocks and you did okay. So if you turn up to school, then you should pass. And I said, but if I don't turn up to school, I'll still pass. So why do I have to come to school? So there was just something in my head that didn't make sense, and I couldn't do it. So they expelled me. And then in Gibraltar, there was only 2 schools. There was a boys' school and the girls' school, the high schools. So
I take it was difficult to get into the other school then?
Well, I did try. So then I wrote because then obviously I was petrified of my father finding out that I'd been expelled.
Did you go to the school on your own then when they called you in to expel you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I did that and then left the school on my own, and then had no support when I'd left, so other than my friends who were like, it's really unfair, it's ridiculous, let's smoke another spliff. So that was the end of that. And then, so then I wrote to the headmaster of the boys' school a real sob story of this is where I'm at, and this is where I've been, and this is what's happened, but I'm still a 9A student, so if you would just accept me, and I know that's really difficult because it's a boys' school and I'm a girl, but if you would consider it. So I think maybe at that stage I was slightly visionary in how I was thinking.
Does that constitute a creative idea?
I guess now, yes, but not at the time. At the time, it was just through necessity. I was just so scared that was the end, and and who was I going to be now? And I remember feeling like that was the first major failure that I'd made, and that was a horrible feeling. Now, I've failed many times, and and I'm really thankful for that time, because one of the things that I think is so scary in creative businesses is failure. Like, it's the biggest, like, I can't do this because what if I fail? I can't leave the job because I might fail. I can't create this business idea that's a seed in my mind because I may fail. So I kind of learned about failure really early on, and now I'm very thankful for that. So then straight after that, I think there was a period of just madness, a lot of fun. And then I realized that I had to do something about it. So I went to there was an education college. It was the only other option in Gibraltar. So I went to the further education college and studied IT, because it was the only thing they'd let me into. And IT at the time, I didn't even know what that was. What I remember clearly about doing that, so it was a HND or something?
HND.
Yeah, B.Tech in computers. And what I remember doing there was leading everyone in song about this song about angels. And just leading my class members into songs every day. So everyone loved it when I was around, but I didn't really, that wasn't going to work either. So yeah, that was the end of that.
Would you have been considered then the class clown at that time?
No. So I think I definitely wanted to make people laugh, but I never got into trouble for that. Although I do remember, I remember one maths teacher who really cared for me. There was quite a few different teachers that I had through my life who really cared for the possibility of me making it through. And I had this one teacher who thought that if he kind of gave me some form of punishment, some like, you know, something to try and keep me on track. So his idea was making me write essays, and I remember one was, you know, if I didn't do my homework and I didn't turn up, then he'd be like, look, I'm going to have to give you an essay and you're going to have to write. So I remember essays like my life as a slice of toast, which for me was just amazing. So, what I mean? So I'd write this brilliant story about my life as a piece of toast. And then I'd go in and I'd just be really happy. And then he'd be like, shit, it didn't work. And there's another one about my life as an empty baked bean tin in the ocean. Yeah, which for me, like, it became, you know, it became the home for this little fish family. And like, just, yeah.
Everything was food related.
It was with him, actually. So yeah, so then, I think after that, so I got expelled from the further college of education, and at which stage I just thought, shit, there's nothing else I can do here. So I got a couple of jobs, realized that was not for me. Just the 9-to-5 thing wasn't it. I think I just had this aspiration, like, so there was something in me that knew that I was meant to do really big things, like whatever my big was. I knew that there was something out there that I was going to love, but I didn't know how I was going to get to it. And I didn't know who was going to help me on that journey or what was going to happen. And then I remember this one woman. So there's always people in life who just turn up at the right moment in life and just give you a little bit of information, and that information is a ticket. And I've been really good at listening to those people, or listening to those signs. And one of the teachers came in and said, I'd like to have a word with you, but can we do it outside of school? So she met up with me and said, you know what, you're a warrior. She was like, you are. She said, I've watched you, I've seen what you've gone through. She said, you know, it's been a really hard journey. She was like, but there's something in you, she said, that is too big for Gibraltar. She said, and you need to get out of this place. And I was like 17, and I was like, get out? Like, where am I going to go? She's like, London. Like, London? I'm 17. And I remember at the time my grandmother saying, London, everyone gets raped after 8 p.m. That's what happens. Like, you mustn't go out after dark in, you know, in London. But also, my grandmother was like quite a person. Like, she'd gone to London when she was in the war, and then she'd caused ruckus there. So she had a pass, and she was trying to save me from having one of those. But I'd heard about this London thing, and I'd never been to England, so on my own. So I came over to London, I called my dad and said, I'm ready. I want to do some A-levels. I'll do that. I'll do them. But I'd like to do them in a year. He was like, in a year, everyone does it in 2 years. You can't do them. I was like, I just know how my mind works, and I won't be able to sustain it for 2. So I'll just cane it, and I'll do 3 A-levels in a year. So he said, you pick the school, and I'll pick where you live. So I picked the second top school in the country for difficult kids. And went to the school. I was lucky at the time that my dad had some money at that point, and he paid for me to go and do my A-levels in a year. And I went to this school for difficult kids. And then he gave me enough money for the taxi from the airport to where I was going. And I remember taking my speakers and my stereo, my record player and my guitar and all my things. And I was like, yes, I'm going to London. And then I saw the address, and where I was going to be staying was in Kensington Square. So I was like, this is amazing. Like, I'm living in London, and I'd seen it on TV, and I was going to be living in Kensington Square. I was so excited. And then a taxi driver got me there, and I was like, yeah, yes, that one. It's number 21. That's it. Yeah, knock on big doors. I was like, oh my God, I've got my own pad in London. This is so exciting. And then I knocked on the door, and then Sister Veronica Ann answered the door. Yeah. And she said, Kirsty Almeida, you're late. So I was like, you don't live here, do you? She was like, yes. And so do the other 100 girls. And so, yeah, he'd put me in a convent. And then I phoned him. I think he was in Dubai at the time. So I phoned my dad on reverse charges, phone call or whatever it was. And on the other side of the line, all I got was, and I was like, you're laughing? And he was like, you didn't actually think I was going to put you in an apartment, did you? He's like, Kirsty, you're trouble. So now you're in the convent. You're just around the corner from where you have to go to school, and you'll do really well. And he thought it was really funny.
So before I digress onto something else, I'm curious, how did that work out?
There were many boys who were dressed up as women who came to stay.
I wasn't sure if that was a euphemism or not, but it's not, is it?
No, so I remember my boyfriend at the time having to dress up to be able to be my, my girlfriend who came from school to stay over.
And they let him in?
They did let him in, yeah.
Wow.
So it was fine. It wasn't like a really, yeah, it was strict, but it wasn't as strict as, as it could have been.
So I really want to, at some point, get to New York, because when I spoke to you about New York, it really fascinates me, everything that went on there. But I feel that it would do an injustice to skip out everything to do with the theatre. Which, if I'm correct, came around the time when you were still in the UK. So if you can kind of just run through how you ended up being involved with the theatre stuff and the penultimate moment before that big jump.
So I did my A-levels, then I took a year out and worked in London. And then I did a foundation course in art and design, which is where my strengths were. And then when I finished that, a very famous artist now who's extremely famous, who was just extreme. Yeah, he was really instrumental in helping me through as an artist. He looked at my work and said, you can paint and your color, your colors are good and everything, but you're not good enough. He said not to make or break in the world. He said, but your music is really good. And he said, so I think you should go for that. And at the time, I really respected what he had to say. And I still had that thing of listen to the signs. So I was like, okay, so I'll go and study music. So a few people had started speaking about this woman called Geraldine Connor, who was Dr. Geraldine Connor, and how she was just the best person to study underneath in this country for doing music. And I didn't really know what kind of music I wanted to do. It was just that somebody had said about this Dr. Geraldine Connor. So I found out where she was. She was at Bretton Hall University. I applied for there. I auditioned. It was really hard to get into. And they had 19 places, but I got one of these places. And she was just larger than life. She was so incredible, like so incredible, and very scary. Really scary. Many people were scared of that woman. She's dead now, sadly, but she was quite a character. So I studied underneath her. I did the course underneath her, and she had a show that she was doing called Carnival Messiah. And I studied performance and composition, and she was my performance teacher. And she was renowned for saying things like, "What sort of foolishness is this?" to anything that you did. And then she'd say, "Go back and do it again." So then it'd be like 12 o'clock at night, and you'd just be doing these shows again and again and again. But her thing was to break down the ego. So she would break you until the point where there would just be nothing left. You'd be like just a smoldering mess of depression. And then she'd say, "Now get up and do it again." And then he'd get up and do it again, broken. But then somehow that kind of built the warrior again. So it was like this kind of constant, I'm going to do better. She's going to like me. She's going to say I'm good. So I started working with her. And then she started this show, Carnival Messiah, which was, it was a collaboration of Handel's Messiah with Trinidadian Carnival, which is where she was from. And so she was the first person in this country to bring Carnival to the stage, to the theatre. And she was one of the few black Afro-Caribbean directors to ever direct in this country, certainly at the time that she was directing. So she really had like a power to her. So I worked with her. And I traveled with her, and I traveled with that show, and I quite quickly became the person who was auditioning the dancers, then weirdly became the person who was teaching the dancers, and then became the person who was helping with helping the choreographers to get the work out. And the show was like 120 strong. And then it had a big band, and it had a huge steel pan band, and there was a choir. It was just a massive show. In that show, I ended up being the stage manager, the teacher, the choreographer at one point, one of the writers. I understudied every single part in the show. I think I had like a name badge that basically said, "Somebody is sick, call Kirsty." So no matter what happened in the show, like at one point, I remember in Trinidad, in one point, I was like, "What do you mean I'm the stage manager? What do I do with this microphone?" And there's like 1,000 people in the audience, and they've given me this big thing with all these buttons, and I'm supposed to be calling the show. But even in those moments, I'd just be like, "Someone thinks I can do this, so I'm just going to do it. I figured this out." And so I traveled with her. So I was in Trinidad for 20 weeks, and we did the West Yorkshire Playhouse and the High Commission in London, and we performed for the Queen, and we just traveled and did all sorts with that show. It's incredible, incredible. And then towards the end of that show, well, the end for me, the show is still doing what it's doing now, but I had a certain moment where I remember clearly thinking, I'm just doing the same thing. So I'd done every part in the show, and I'd played some incredible parts, but I was doing the same dance movements all over and over again for a couple of years, and the creativity had gone. And creativity for me is a lifeline. So if I'm not creative, I get anxiety, and I start getting panic attacks, and I can't work out what's wrong. And then one of my friends will go, "When was the last time you wrote something?" And then I go back into being creative. So at that stage, I spoke to Geraldine and said, "I'm going to leave the show." "What kind of foolishness is this?" So I was like, "Geraldine, I've done what I can do with the show, and it's not going to do. There's something in me that I need to honor, and I don't know what it is." And she understood. And so I taught the show for the next set of people who were doing the show, and then when they were going to perform the show, I left and went to New York. I'd never been to New York. And so I bought a ticket for a month and went out to New York, and my plan was to find Zen. So not many people go to New York for Zen. I found it because in that amazing way of The Alchemist, whatever it is that you're searching for is searching for you at the same time. So I went out there and got to New York. And that was massively a turning point in my life, because up until that point, I'd been used to having someone else run the show and someone else telling me what to do and what I was doing next and where the money was coming from and what I was doing. And at that stage, I remember arriving in New York in this apartment and feeling like I should be at a party. Like I had this absolute anxiety that I needed to go and find out where the people were and where the people I needed to meet were and who were the music executives in New York and all of that stuff. And then I had this book on the side, and I was thinking, well, I should be writing a song, or I should be trying to write a show, or I should be doing something. And I just thought, just read the book, like pick the book up and just stop, like allow yourself to stop. And it was Paulo Coelho. He's written incredible books like The Alchemist. And it was just some short stories, and I flicked it open, and there was a story about how he had written his last best-selling hit. He'd finished the one that the publisher had in their hands, and he'd also finished the one that was after that. So he didn't have to do any writing. But he had the same anxiety that I had, that I must do something, there's something that I need to do. So he was in his house in France, and he thought, I need a stapler. I don't have a stapler, I must get one. So he got in his car, and the nearest place he could buy a stapler was like an hour and a half's drive, and he was on his mission to get the stapler. And then he said he stopped the car and just thought, what kind of foolishness is this? And realized that it was just another little voice in his head going, do things, do things, do things, do. So he forced himself to sit in his garden in the rain, and he sat there and insisted to himself that he was going to try to just see if he could sit for a couple of hours and do nothing else. And he said that during that period of time, and it was just amazing me reading this, like it was the first page I'd flicked, and in the way that the universe would have it, what you need is always right next to you if you listen. And it just had this profound effect because what he said was, he sat and for the first hour, his head was going, you should be doing things. There's emails to do. You have to text people. You didn't buy the shopping. You've got stuff to do. And then for the next hour, that voice started to calm down. And then he said that after that, his soul started to speak to him. And he really started to listen to what the inner voice said. So that then became my journey in New York, where I was just like, right, I'm going to see if I can hear my soul speak. So I spent the next 3.5 weeks listening and just sitting. I didn't talk to people. I just went to Central Park and just watched and looked at things. And at the end of New York, it was really clear that that I had to write an album. And I'd never written an album before. And that I was going to come back to the UK and I was just going to turn everything off and cut everyone out and go and find somewhere to just go and write. So I did that.
So just before then, when we're going to go for a break in about 5 minutes, but the last bit I just want you to wrap up for this first half is you left the UK to go to New York in what many could say is a highlight of something about to go into the West End, which is what the pinnacle of why people stay. You end up going to New York, and whilst you're in a band, you're touring, you're writing music, you leave the band to come back to the UK because of reading a book, which I suppose sparked a feeling inside yourself to go, and do you know what, this is really important to me. And so when you came back to the UK, you settled in Sheffield. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting was when you said you gave yourself a goal every single day. And I just want you to spend a couple of minutes to just share what the goal was to do every day and why that's important.
So the goal was, can I tell them just one thing that's really, it's massively important for that. So,
Of course.
thank you. At the time that I came back from New York, I got a phone call from someone who said he'd been nominated for an award. And I was like, but I didn't apply for an award. I didn't like this. It doesn't make any sense. Like there was no reason that I was supposed to receive this award. And they said, no, Manchester Jazz Festival have nominated you for an award as an up and coming jazz composer. And I was like, no, it has to be someone else because I've never composed any jazz. And they said, well, your last album, which was a collaboration that I'd done with someone else, has been nominated, and you've been, nominated for this award. And this is when I was in New York, and I'm coming back. So I flew back to the UK, not because of the award, but because I had to. And to get the award, so 40 people are nominated around the country, and 8 people were going to get this award. And they said, but you need to fill out the form. I have petrified, like forms, education, nightmare. You have to fill out the form to say why you should get the award. So that's a really hard thing for someone who's got little to no self-belief in various shapes and forms. So I sat down with this form for about a week, and about 2 bottles of wine and everything else happened with the form, and the form never got written. But then 5 minutes before the form had to be handed in, at 5 to 4 on the day, my bass player and the people I was living with said, fill out the form, just whatever, just put anything on the freaking form, just write anything. So I sat down and then I thought, I've got an idea. I'll just do that. And I remember thinking, but it's a mad idea, just do it. So it's that thing of like, I'm going to just do this idea, but it's not what other people would write on the form. So what I wrote was something like, I can't remember, but it was something like, I tried really hard to fill out this form, and the empty lines were just screaming at me. So eventually I stepped into the page and I wobbled around on the top line, and I shouted down, and I heard all the echo of the space from the rest of the form. So I threw some thoughts onto the form, and I threw some words out there. And then when I looked out the window to try and gather what it was that I was trying to say, all the words started giggling and running around the page and putting themselves into the places where I didn't want them to go. So I've tried to round up all those words and put them into the sentences in the right order, in the right paragraphs, in the hope that you will see why it is that I should potentially get this award. It would mean a lot to me. And that's what I sent. And then, of course, I won the award, on the back of what it was that I'd written on the form. And when I met all of the delegates, and that award that I got allowed me to take some time out, so it gave me a little bit of money, and it gave me some time out. And everyone that I met, all the delegates that I met through the award, said, "It was your form that made me think that you were the one that needed to get the award." So it was an amazing moment in my life where I was like, those little thoughts, those little things where you think, I'm just going to try this because it doesn't really matter, are the things where you really separate yourself from other people. So because of that award, it gave me some time to go. And then I moved to Sheffield, moved into that space. But I knew that if I didn't give myself a goal, then 6 months would pass and I'd just be in the same mess. Or I'd be in a mess. So I decided that I was going to write every day. And whether it was good or it was bad, I had to write a song every day. And then I have an idea of what success is in my head, like my idea of success, or how to become successful, is to have an idea, to make the idea happen, to finish it, which is where most people get stuck, and then to share it. And if you share it with just one person, that's enough. It doesn't have to be with 20,000 people. You just share it with one. So I started writing songs every day, and whatever my idea was, I would put it onto MySpace, where I have maybe 13 followers. And so I used to put it onto MySpace, and there I am in the middle of Sheffield, in the middle of the countryside somewhere. I wasn't making much contact with anyone, but I would put it on MySpace, and I stuck to that. So every day, whether I was broken, hurt, upset, whatever it was, I'd still go into the room and sit at the guitar and write. And I just kept doing that and then I think I put a few songs up, and then someone wrote to me and said, "That song, Wrong Mr. Right, did you write that?" So I said, "Yes." And he said, "Are you managed?" And I said, "No." He said, "Do you have a record label?" And I said, "No." He said, "Can you meet me on Friday? I'd like to meet you in London." So I said, "Sure." So I went down to London, and then within 2 months I'd been signed to Decca on the back of that.
Wow, fantastic. Give her a round of applause, everyone, to Kirsty. So we'll just take a 5-10 minute break, have a refreshment, go to the bathroom if you need to, and we'll come back in 10 minutes. If you can, if you've come with someone else, or if you've met some people on your row, normally we'd have tables, just have a chat to them and have a see what's come up for yourself from what Kirsty's been talking about, how it might apply to yourself, and just have a see if you can come up with 2 or 3 questions amongst yourselves that you'd like to ask. There's tons of Kirsty's story we haven't even delved into yet. So I'm conscious of time, so if you've got a burning question, now's the time to write it down. Thanks very much. that we've had so far. Any questions from the audience? One from this gentleman here. Yes, sir.
Your journey is very interesting, and whenever I hear somebody who was kicked out of schools, I just say, that's really nice, because I was kicked out of almost all the primary schools I went to. And the journey has some points that I found similar. You went to a convent, my discipline was, I was taken to a seminary where they were training priests. I don't know why my family took me, and they were very strict. For me, it didn't work. It made me worse. I wanted to know what your experience was.
Yeah, it definitely made me rebel. So it didn't. Yeah, it doesn't work. I don't feel. I'm not sure that that is the right way for anyone. You know, it's this kind of like strict rigidity. I think that human beings are just really creative, full stop. I think everyone is really creative. I now have a massive issue with education because I feel like education, not all education, you know, there are some schools that are now doing incredible things. They're starting to. And lots of schools do amazing things sometimes. But I have an issue with putting people through the same thing. Human beings are not the same. You know, like one person is born with, you know, great creative skills, another person is great on maths, another person is amazing at language, but our education system is pretty much guided towards economics and and religion. You know, there's still that kind of religious background that seems to be echoing in a lot of education systems, and I have an issue with that. I have an issue with history being about world wars. You know, the history is many things. Like our history is so rich and filled with such beauty, but that's not that's not what we're learning about. So I have an issue with schools in that way. So yeah, it just made me rebel. And even in the convent, it wasn't a strict convent, so we weren't made to pray in the convent at all. There's nothing like that. But I still had an issue with rules. I've always had an issue with authority. So that continues to happen in my life, and I'm trying to get over that because it's not, you can't exist in this society without getting good with authority in some sort of way, and so it didn't do me any good at all.
Just 1 second. If we'll get a microphone.
Thank you. I've been trying to rethink education because of my experience with it. And I focus on primary schools. I've done a lot of creativity in education.
Yeah.
And I thought my times of being kicked out of schools had finished, but actually they invited me in to run a workshop and then they told me never to come back. Simply because they told me their kids don't work together, and I let them run riot so that they can realize that if they run riot, there are consequences. And in the end, I had the results I wanted, but the teacher wasn't happy. And I noticed that I should be thinking of different methods that could work in the classroom. And you mentioned you use music to escape. I use daydreaming.
Nice.
I would just create stories. And I'm wondering, should we encourage schools to have a session in primary for daydreaming as a lesson?
Absolutely.
For kids?
Yes, absolutely. There's loads of school systems now, like the Steiner School does have elements of that in it anyway. I think the way through I'm going to bracket us together if that's okay, but for people like yourself and myself, from some of the things that we've both gone through, I've realized now that the way through is not to just be really visionary about how we do things, because it's too big a jump for the system to take. So the way through is to befriend the system and then to go through the system, or to at least have the system look at you as though, he's ticked this box and this box. He does know that it's about speaking the same language. So it's making sure that we can still speak the same language of the education systems and have the education system look at us and go, oh my God, we want our children to be more like, whatever it is, this person or that person, and making sure that we have the credits that make them understand who we are. And then at that stage, then you can go, and now I'd like to try this, but it has to be through that way, otherwise the jump is too big. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Fantastic. So one of the big questions I wanted to ask, which I've left towards the end, which is regarding the wondering. And also regarding making difficult decisions. Any person, well, whether you're in business or not in business, but specifically when you are in business, sometimes you have to make decisions which are very challenging. And so if you could just go towards the end of the Wondering and just explain where it had gone to on its journey and some of the decisions that had to be made along the way and how, as a leader, they can have a massive impact on yourself and how you deliver those to the people you're working with. It's a big question, I know.
It's a really big question. I had to make a lot of very, very difficult decisions at the Wondering, and I'm not sure that I always made the right decision. But I do know this. I know that I very often tried to listen to my intuition. Your intuition knows. So there was a lot of things like if I had to have the same conversation repeatedly, I would start to clock what it was that I was saying. So it'd be like, like often I'd had conversations with you about things where I was like, I'm really struggling with this situation at work and I'm struggling with this. And then if I then found myself repeating that somewhere else and having that same conversation with someone else and then repeating the conversation again, then it'd be like, what, this is wasting my words. So why am I still on a loop? I need to do something about this. And then to do something about it is very difficult, but the consequences of not doing something about it is what I learned. So I learned a lot of things at the Wondering where I should have made, I could have made decisions way before the time that I did, and I wouldn't have had such an issue. So now it's one of those things where difficult decisions are difficult decisions. The more you make difficult decisions, the easier it gets to make difficult decisions because it doesn't become about the drama. So it's very easy. The longer you leave situations, the more drama incurs. The more the drama ensues, the bigger the situation you have on your hands. So I'm starting to get quite good in my life at seeing something and thinking, shit, there's another one of those situations. This is really difficult. What am I going to do about this? I need to do something about this now. And actually what made me realize that is life is too short. Life is so short, and I'm starting to see how short life really is. I realize now that we only have enough time to make a certain amount of projects happen. So as you're growing up, you think, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to make one of those, and then I'm going to have 5 of them. And then as you're going through life, you're like, hold on, I'm now 40, whatever, and how long have I got left now to make projects? Or how long have I got left now to travel the world? Or whatever it is. So those difficult decisions kind of cut that extra time that you've got. So I started to realize that was like, and also this was, I think someone else said this to me and it's really important. If somebody is in a position that you think that they shouldn't be in, if you leave them in that position, you're not using them for their best. So then it was about, hold on, how do I get certain people or, certain elements of the Wondering into the position that they need to be in so that the people who are actually doing that are also thriving rather than, so sometimes really difficult decisions, you're freeing someone up. Like an ex-boyfriend where the relationship has gone on for too long and it's definitely over. It's the same sort of thing. It's like, well, actually, I'm going to free you up and you're going to do great.
I think that's really good when you talk about perspective. Last month we had Amanda Merrick from Merrick Life, and she deals with divorce, and she's a divorce lawyer, a family lawyer. And for many people that can be it's like the minute you say lawyer, there's this instant like, ooh, tss. But she summarized something so beautifully, and she said that she doesn't split people up. People come to her because they're unhappy. And she said her job, and she does it with so much heart and passion, her job is to help 2 people move on and get on with their life, and they're happier as a result. And it's the same thing kind of as what you've just said there. If you've got person A doing job B and they're not performing to their best, it's actually your responsibility to identify that and then do something about it, which can be really, really painful at times.
But I think at the end of the Wondering as well, because the Wondering was a really important place to a lot of people. And when I say important, I feel like it was extremely life-changing for quite a lot of people, and it brought some really special transformations to Manchester, I think. And I think towards the end, the most difficult decision that I had to make was to end it. That was the hardest decision, and that was a really difficult decision to make. But I am a huge believer in the surrender, experience, where if something is coming your way, it's coming your way, and you can either surrender to it, or it's going to find another way to make you surrender. So I tried to keep the Wonder Inn open this way, and I tried it that way. And, I had a landlord, he wanted the building back, even though he didn't want the building back. And in the end, he offered me another year, and free rent right at the end. As I'm handing back the keys, he's like, if you want the building back for another year, you could have it. I'm like, what, are you kidding me? But even that was amazing, actually, because the universe had already decided. Do you know what I mean? There was something that was decided that was bigger than me that I had to listen to, and I know it. And I don't know if it was my music. I don't know if it was that something's going to happen with my son. I don't know whether it was that I was going to get some incredible job doing something else, or I have no idea what it was. But there was a certain point where something was decided, and I saw it happen, and I started to see that doors were shutting in different ways, and no matter what I was doing, another door would close. Then I'd be like, hold on, I just opened that door and now this one's closed. So it's those moments where you're like, the decision has already been made for you, so you either surrender to it and get on with it, or you're going to find out the hard way. And so I've started getting quite good at listening to that.
And I suppose, I don't know if other people can relate to this, but the sooner and the quicker you accept what's going on and deal with it, the less painful it is. Because I think you said before, if you know a decision needs to be made, and I think this is the same for relationships when you're younger or older at any stage, or in business, every day that goes by and you know that needs to be done and you're not doing it, you're going to receive more and more pain from that side of things. Yeah.
And also sometimes there isn't a wrong choice. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's the biggest thing. There are choices that you can make in business that have a massive impact. Like there are some that I'm still paying for now and that I will continue to pay for until that is done and it's cleaned and it's done and it's fixed. But there are no wrong choices. So you make a choice and then quite quickly you see whether that was right in that moment or not. And then you deal with that. So the biggest thing is always dealing with the repercussions of the choices that you make. The biggest issue is when you ignore them. So the biggest issue is when something is screaming at you and you're going, maybe some more fairy lights just around here, as there's something else massive going on that you don't want to deal with. And we had quite a few of those situations with the staff and with, within the situation of what we were doing internally.
I don't want to distract, but you also had a lot of fairy lights.
We had a lot of fairy lights. I now have a lot of fairy lights. But I think, there was I learned quite quickly that choices, you just make choices. You can make choice A or you make choice B. It makes no difference really, because if you do choice A and you surrender to choice A, like really surrender and just go, I'm just going to go this way and that's okay, and it doesn't matter about the drama, it's fine, I'm just making this choice, then a whole new set of options open up for you. And it will eventually get you to choice B if you were really meant to take choice B. So it doesn't matter. It's like you just have to make a choice. And I think towards the end of the Wonder Inn, it was really hard to make that choice because I adored the Wonder Inn. And it was it was another baby for me. I had Ray and the Wonder Inn at the same time. But I knew that the Wonder Inn had come in because it had a job to do. Do you know what I mean? And I felt like the job had been done. And I remember the day that, I realized that job had been done when I'd been working with the lawyers, and I had these pro bono lawyers who were massive and are now very good friends of mine. They helped me all the way through. They were really incredible at guiding me through towards the end of the Wonder Inn. And I kept listening to them, and they kept saying, it needs to end. And I'd be like, yes, but you don't understand. It's making life-changing, incredible things happen. And they were like, it needs to end. So I started to just listen to what was going on. It was just lots of people going, it needs to end, it needs to end. It's not about the building, it's about what you've learned and all these things. And then one day, I had to get some stuff into the courts and it was really important. And I didn't know. And one of the staff had kept the letter that said I had to get it in by 4 p.m. And I was doing a photo shoot upstairs of the Wonder Inn and just doing this really beautiful photo shoot with all these people that were there who were really good friends of mine. And then someone came in and said, look, one of the staff kept this letter, but I've just got a feeling that you need it. So I was like, oh, why would they keep... Oh, okay. So I open it and it's 3:30. And it says in this letter that I've got to get some stuff into court or it's over. I've got to get some stuff into the courts, a 40-page document that has to be signed, and I've got half an hour to do it. And I'm in the middle of a photo shoot, and the letter's put in my hand. So those were the kind of things that I was dealing with. But I was dealing with stuff like that every day. So the stress levels of those kind of things. Oh, but I just thought for your well-being, I'd just hide the letter. Doing those kind of things. And she was doing it through, there was no malice in it whatsoever. Then there really wasn't. She was just like, she can have it after the photo shoot. So then I've got half an hour. So I'm like, Scooby, you run that way, get to Apple, someone else get this, we need to print this, I got half an hour. Funny, the lawyers, I'm running. Ray comes up to me for the first time ever and says, oh wait, my pants, mummy. No! Because as a mum, do you know what I mean? It's like, forget the court stuff. The child has weed his pants. Do you know what I mean? No one else can fix this because the guilt would be too much. So I'm like carrying my child on the way to Next to get some thing, and I've still only got 25 minutes to get the thing, whatever it is. Ray's getting sorted out, so I've got the paperwork. I'm running to I get to Apple. I am I promise you, I was shaking. I've been in court for a year on this, and I'm against the landlord and all of that stuff. Anyway, we get there. Scooby runs upstairs. I'm panicking in my head because I'm thinking 40 pages. So I didn't know it was 40, but she phones me and she's like, Kirsty, it's 40 pages. At this stage, we've got 5 minutes. 5 minutes to get this in, hand it in to the court. So I'm like, phoning the court. So they're like, yes, you can email it over. So I'm like, email it over. Oh my God, yes. Then this little thought comes into my head. You don't need to scan 40 pages. You just sign the last one and then send that in. Just get everything on Word. So we're trying to get it all done. Behind me, unbeknownst to me, Apple have 20 people there on a course. They're just doing a course that day and they're just all behind me, and I'm honest to God shaking. I couldn't sign the piece of paper because all I could think was, it's over. It's over. Oh my God, everything is over. It's done. This is it. If I don't get it in, it's done. Because the landlord could potentially just walk in and just say, and now the keys are mine. Thank you. So I've got 2 minutes. I think there was 2 minutes left, and I'm signing it. I'm trying to photograph it. I'm putting it through the scanner. At this stage, my credit card's gone down, so as I'm sending the email, it's not sending. So I'm like, what do you mean the credit card's gone? It's definitely, there's no reason, and there was no reason for the credit card not to work other than it was a new card and it hadn't been activated, so it had gone on, somebody else had put it in, not activated, blah, blah. Just the way those things work. And then I press send, and it sends, but it's 1 minute after 4. And I know that in the courts, it doesn't matter whether it's 4 p.m. or it's 3 days later, 4:01, or 3 days later, it's the same thing. But right at that point, and this is when I realized the Wonder Inn had to end, right at that point, these 20 people behind me who are doing this Apple course have just finished. And in that classic kind of Steve Jobs, let's make everyone feel really great about our jobs, they put over the speakers, 'cause you're amazing just the way you are. So I'm sat there crying my eyes out, and all these people behind me, that's massively through the speakers, and all these people behind me right at that moment, 4:01, as it sends, start clapping and screaming, woo, because they've just finished their course. But I swear to you that moment was for me, and I know it. I know that in that one moment, that was the universe saying, you did it. You created what needed to happen. You helped with all that transformation. You changed the face of how people look at venues for some venues. You brought an environmental aspect into venues that other venues have now started going, no, we don't use toxins in our venues. We change, we created a space for consciousness to be able to do its work, and we helped thousands of people to wake up in that situation. And in that moment, there was nothing else I needed to do. I mean, my job was done. And that's how that felt in that moment. And I remember just walking back, just feeling like, I didn't even know how I felt other than that it was released and that it was over and that all I needed to do now was to just get to the finish line. And at that stage, there was lots of people who turned up saying, but I want to invest and I could put 40,000 and I've got 200,000. And I was like, it's done. Like, it's done. I need to. So I liquidated the business at that stage so that the people who were owed were cleared, or, that I could clear as much as I could at that stage. And I ended it because I knew, I don't know how to explain. You just have those moments where you're like, I know exactly what's going on here. I know why I had to do what it had to do. And there was too many universal signs, and just in that moment, that was class. I loved it. That was that. I'll never forget that moment.
Fantastic. So, there's one thing towards the end of the Wondering which I thought was really interesting. Again, in business and not in business, you make friends, and you don't aim to make enemies, but somehow along the way, communication gets a bit misconstrued, and you end up with enemies. And one of the people who certainly started off that way was the landlord. But towards the end of your story, even he started to change. And I just want you to share a little bit to do with how, no matter how someone else treats you, the decisions you choose to make every single day are your decisions to make, not somebody else's. When you get out of bed, it's your choice how you feel that day. There's all the crap that's going on still going on. And when you shared the story towards the end, at the final day with everything, that epitomized to me how holding that space, whether it's your staff or somebody else, really can make a difference in other people's lives.
Yeah. I'm a huge believer that quality must be maintained. So whatever your product, whatever your thing is, whether it's your music or it's your cafe or whatever it is, you have to do everything that you can to be as integral towards that as you possibly can, and to make sure that you're making the choices based on, and you can't do that for everyone. I couldn't do that for everyone. There were certain people who towards the end really had an issue with me and the choices that I was making. There was other people, like I was like absolutely revered as a god for some people and the devil for others. Do you know what I mean? There was very few people in the middle. It was like I was either totally visionary and incredible at what I was doing, or I was really, really disliked by other people and I was a complete fraud. I know who I am, and I know that all of the decisions that I made were from the greatest good, and they were from my greatest good. And I know that along that way, I made some decisions that were really difficult and that I didn't like myself, but I knew that they were the decisions that had to be made. And even with the landlord, all the way through with the landlord, it was such a crazy situation. I did what it was that I could do to the best of my ability at all times and tried to remove the drama. And I even said things like, our landlord loves us. I know the landlord loves us. I know, do you know what I mean? I used to affirm, I used to try and keep it really clean. I'd have other people going, that bastard landlord. And I'd be like, no, we are running a conscious venue and this is what we're doing and this is how it is. Amazingly, that worked. So at the end, when I sat with the landlord, and there was just me and the landlord in an empty venue, in a shell of this venue, and we sat there and we had a really deep conversation about what had happened over the last couple of years, like a really amazing, conversation. And right at the end, he said, if you ever need anything at all, or Ray does, you come and see me, and I'll help you. I mean, so it was like this amazing thing. And what I realized out of all of that is that him and I had a journey. We had a warrior's journey that we had to go on. We had this thing that needed to happen. He didn't even need his building back. He didn't even need it. You know, so I was going through all of that. He didn't even need it. But maybe my music wanted me back. You know, maybe my job was done. Maybe, you know, what, I have no idea what, you know, how that will pan out. But I know that the decisions that we make have to, they're not personal to someone else. You just need to make sure that you know the decisions that you've made, because people are always going to have something to say. You know, people always have things to say. People have an opinion, and you will never. I think it's Don Miguel Ruiz in the Four Agreements, which is an amazing book to read. He said, and the second one is like, nothing is personal. Nothing is ever personal. So anything, I could sit here straight. You could go to the toilet now, and I could say, he's such an idiot. Do you know what I mean? And it would say nothing about you. It would say a lot about me, but it wouldn't say anything about you. So I realized that all the way through. It was like the decisions that I was making, the things that I was doing, I needed to know that I was good with them. And there's certain ones that I'm still like, did I make the right decision? Did I not? And then later on, 6 months later, I'm like, oh, I did make the right decision. Or there's certain people that I've gone back to and said, I'm really sorry, I made a decision and I still don't like the decision that I made. But that conversation is really important. And that conversation then opens you up for whatever business you're doing next. So.
And I think there's a little point I want to make on that, which is you are the sum of every decision you've ever made. Every bad decision you've ever made, every good decision you've ever made brought you to this point right here. And if you were to go back 10, 20, 30 years and not do that thing to that person, whether it was good or bad is irrelevant. It's like the butterfly effect. You don't know where you'd be today. And in a way, you're only a byproduct of your bad decisions, because your good ones, most of you forget your good ones. It's always the bad ones that you beat yourself with the proverbial stick, when actually they are what teach you the lessons to go, I'm not going to do that. I've done it, but that's how you've learned not to do it, because you've done it.
It's also where life happens. Do you know what I mean? So there's a really safe place that you can stay in. And I think maybe that's one of the amazing things about being an entrepreneur, that there's a very safe place that you can stay in. And that safe place, it's an amazing place to be because you're safe, and that's good. But when you dare and you make some decisions and you might think, shit, I made that decision and it went wrong. Do you know what I mean? Or it went bad, or it, you know, whatever it is, or it didn't work out how I expected it to, or I didn't get what I hoped for. You got what you needed. You got whatever was going to come next. And some of the decisions that I've made in the last couple of years have really taught me that, where I'm like, wow, I made that decision, but if I hadn't made that decision, like small things, like I remember someone saying, you don't make money by going from 0 to 1,000,000. You make money by going from 0 to 100 and then doubling that. And then next week thinking I'll make 400 this week. And then and I remember at the Wonder Inn thinking, I can't imagine the day that we'll ever make $1,000 in an evening. But you can't, do you know what I mean? So you realize that you don't make £1,000 in an evening when you've never made £1,000 in an evening. You make £250 in an evening. And then the next time you go, I wonder if we can make 350. What do we have to do to make 350? Do you know what I mean? You can't jump from 0 to making 10,000. But then I remember the weekends where we were making, you know, or like the couple of times that we made 4,500 in an evening. Do you know what I mean? But at the beginning, I would never have seen that coming. So it's those things where it's like, but also you have to make the mistakes. So there was nights where we didn't make anything, and I'd be like, shit, we spent all that money on all this supplies, and we weren't the kind of business, because it was a conscious business. We weren't in a business that had any money to fall back on. But then those mistakes meant that we would then go, okay, so what can we do? And how do we, because of that's happened, then do we order more crisps, or do we, you know, whatever it is, like how, or should I perform? What needs to happen? So it's like when you make those mistakes, you learn some sort of humility that then becomes creative after that.
So we are on the last 2 minutes. Does anybody wish to have the last question before we move on to some beautiful music? Got one question from the front here. Alan, do you want to take the microphone?
Hello. I wanted to ask about fear, because, you know, when you're younger, you seem to make these incredible leaps, whether it be to London or to New York or whatever it might be, or let's do an album, whatever it was, did you feel much fear, and do you to this day? And how do you deal with that? What do you say to that fear in order to just actually do something as opposed to be paralyzed by the fear?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I have always been really scared, like really scared. So when I went to Sheffield, I was really scared. When I went to New York, I was scared. When I left the show, I was really scared. I'm now a little bit scared about what I'm about to do next. But there are various things that you can do. So one, affirmations are huge, and I can't explain how important affirmations are. It's it's nearly impossible to jump from feeling paralyzed by fear and having an affirmation that says, I feel completely free to do whatever I want. You can't do that. But you can say things to yourself like, I am willing to believe that I might be able to do whatever it is that I want. So I am willing to believe is like a really big, it like opens the mind a little bit. I'm willing to believe that it might be possible for me to do well with my next album. I'm willing to believe. And if you just start to say that, there's an incredible thing that starts to happen within your life. It's like little opportunity. It's like those words are like, they're just a key, and they start to open things up for you. So never make affirmations, a really big leap. They have to be something that you are able to believe. So you could believe that I'm willing to believe that I can maybe do, that's like manageable. And then once you get to that place where that feels okay, then you try the next one, which is, I'm willing to believe that something is happening to make this happen for me. Do you know what I mean? Or I'm willing to believe that opportunities are coming my way for my dream to be able to happen. So I started, and it's just retraining the mind, because the fear is just a cortisol thing. It's like it's an adrenaline. And sometimes to blast through that is one way to go. But also you can just coax it. So you can just gently start to do that. I always read. So my biggest thing is to read. So I have audiobooks constantly on in my house by people who've done it before me. So it's also really important, I think, to find reasons that you can surround yourself with that make you feel like the outside world is reflecting back what it is that you want. So recently when I thought, right, I'm going to record my album, I'm going to get that out there, and then I had this whole thing of, but you're 41. Who wants to listen to a 41-year-old sing the songs? No one wants to do that, is what my head was saying. So then I was like, so what's the issue there? So what am I scared of? And I was like, I'm scared of being rejected for being too old. So that was my big thing. I'm too old. Oh my God, I'm never going to make it in music because I'm way too old. So I was like, right. So instead of just going, that's a stupid thing, in the same way that my friends would say, because as soon as someone goes, well, that's really stupid, then you feel like you can't even say it again. So what I did was, I just started looking up all these different people who'd made it above the age of 70. So people who'd made it in the for the first time in their life. There are so many people who've had like Nobel Prizes, Peace Prizes, and Grammys above the age of 70, and they're like all these different people who just they've gone and done it, and they've still made incredible things happen for themselves above the age of 70. I mean, I'm 40, well, I'm 41, but that already started to make me feel better. It was like just breaking down your own barriers. I think it's really important to just do it step by step. So when you're paralyzed with fear, it's too much of a jump to go, I'm just going to go and do it. But you can start to. One of the things I find really important is I don't discuss my ideas with other people, because then you have other people's paranoias and they start to affirm your fears. So I've always kept my mouth shut. So as soon as I've got an idea of something that I really want to do, until I'm in it and I'm doing it, I don't discuss it with anyone. Unless I know that person is going to be like, oh my God, yes. So if you've got a yes friend, that's who so you can come see me.
Fantastic. Okay, so we're wrapping up for time now. Before music, I would like everybody to give. I've got a hand up at the back. Oh, is it turned on?
Hello? Oh, hi. I have a quick question for you. Hello.
Hi.
What's next for you, Kirsty? I'm really interested.
Thank you. So I'm recording an album that I half recorded before I started The Wondering. It's a little bit like I went into a washing machine halfway through that album, and then I was on a full cycle and spin for 3 years, and then I got spat out the other side, and I've just gone straight back into the studio and continued with that album. So I'm making that album happen, and then I've decided to make 3 videos, but really beautiful videos to go with the album, which I've never done before, and I'm going to make each of them as beautiful as I can. And then I'm coaching, so I decided that I was going to take on 5 coaching clients because I've learned so much from all the mentors that I've had that I just think it's an amazing, just an amazing thing to have a coach is just incredible. So I'd like to do that. I feel like I'm only ever going to do this once. I feel like it's something that I'd like to do now, and I want to work with 5 people for 6 months. I already have 3 clients, which is great, and I'm going to work with another 2. Whoever they are, it might be one of you. And I'm going to work with people for 6 months to help them birth whatever it is that they want to birth and put out into the world. And that feels really good. I'm really loving that. The 3 clients that I've got already just feel really exciting. And so I'm doing that. And then what else? I'm going to really love being with my son. I'm going to be a mum and adore that and start to create life. So I'm just going to start. I've decided to put the energy that I usually put into massive projects into my life, into my personal life, and then see just how wonderful life can be.
Are the songs you're playing tonight from your new album, old albums?
I don't actually know what I'm playing yet, so I've no idea. I hadn't even thought about it. So we'll find out.
Fantastic.
Write a song before your very eyes.
No pressure.
No pressure there. I'll try.
All right. Everybody, if you could give Kirsty a big round of applause. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
We may not have time afterwards, so I just want to reiterate, this is the official launch now of Entrepreneurs for Good. Kirsty did us the beautiful honor and privilege of coming first to share her story and her journey. I hope it's been really, really nice. You've taken a lot from it. We meet every single month. From the new year, it will be the 2nd Tuesday of every month. The Chapter 1 bookstore is graciously giving us their space. It is a beautiful space, and coming from where we used to have them at the Wonder Inn, and if you'd never been before, it's as magical to walk in as here, and it really does change the perspective on places you can have events, because there's enough 4 magnolia walls that exist in all towns and cities. So we'll have a 5-minute break now and get set up for some music, but thank you very much everybody for coming, and once again to Kirsty Almeida in the Chapter 1 bookstore.
Thank you. Do, 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 do. And can I have some reverb now? Aha, a bit less. Do, 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 do. Great, thanks. Yep. Thank you. Perfect. Yes. The what? The music, yes. Ah. Gideon, you were here at the beginning. In the middle. Haven't you got a gig? You finished? Nice. Good. Bye. How was your gig? Okay. So I'm going to start with a song called The Stranger, which is on the new album. So I'm just going to tune. Sorry. He walked out as I came in. All that I could muster then was please don't go. And somehow I'm back here again, leaning on a stranger that I'll never know. And London looks so pretty in the puddles' glow, but the Thames just brings it flooding back again. And if you've got time to listen to my heartbreak show, well, I've got time to say it all again. But give me your hands, just give me your warm hands, and lend me your wings, and I'll learn to fly. 'Cause a roller coaster ride of life spun me upside down too many times. And if you don't mind, I won't say. If you don't say, I'll never mind at all. Faded days and awkward grays, far too much caffeine just made the summer long. And round the bend I went, and somehow I'm back here with just the same old song. So rest assured the words you use are binding, for they'll stamp you to whatever deed you choose. So pick 'em wise, for therein lies your findings, or pick 'em wrong and somehow you will lose. But give me your hands, just give me your warm hands, and lend me your wings, and I'll learn to fly. 'Cause a roller coaster ride of life spun me upside down too many times. And if you don't mind, I won't say. If you don't say, I'll never mind at all. At all. At all. Thank you. This one's called The Fire. Kind of feels slightly like the next album. All the songs start with the. So The Stranger, The Fire, The Moonbird. Yes, there are a few more thes. I'm trying to find a title for the album at the moment, and then my head just thought maybe the, but that's definitely not right. Gideon will tell me later, no, don't call it the. The fire just won't light for no reason. I've tried all that I used to use, and the cold in my home just won't leave me alone. I've tried every triable fuse. Was a time when I thought for granted, I thought the flame would roar and roar, when the tiniest spark could light my whole heart. Now that spark is a heavy old chore. And oh, what a fool, oh, what a fool I've been. There's a story they tell to children about how every good girl gets a guy. Now those effortless words make you feel so unheard when they feed the truths to the lies. And oh, what a fool, oh, what a fool I've been. But I see how madness grows. I see how madness grows. Yes, I see how madness grows. 'Cause I've watched it grow. But the fire just won't light for no reason. Can you take some of the reverb? I'm not sure I'll remember this, but I'll try. You found me through the vast amount of people. You held my dreams and washed my blues away. You reached deep down inside and you held me through me. So now I ask the stars to hear me say that I'm going to love you. Yes, I'm going to love you. And I'm going to love you each and every day. Yes, I'm going to love you. I'm going to love you. I'm going to love you each and every day. What's the words? I don't want to make them up because they're. What do you do with these moments? I've got a complete blank. It's very lovely here inside this bookshop. I lost the words but found a couple more. I've had a lovely time, mostly 'cause I'm not with my 3-year-old. So now I'll try to find the rest of the song. And I'm going to love you. Yes, I'm going to love you. Yes, I'm going to love you each and every day. Yes, I'm going to love you. I'm going to love you. Yes, I'm going to love you each and every day. Yes, I'm going to love you, yeah. Yes, I'm going to love you, yeah. I'm going to love you, yeah. Each and every day. Yes, I'm going to love you. Yes, I'm going to love you. Yes, I'm going to love you each and every day. Each and every day. Each and every day. Almost every day. This is one of the ones that I wrote in that Sheffield summer house. Well, I wonder just what might have been had I said yes to more than friends. Would the world seem quite as cold as it does right now? Would the emptiness I was feeling then slip away with saying yes back when? Would color come and paint my life somehow? Could I rewind, spend a little time, and I could make you laugh, you could make it rhyme, and we could watch the sun go up, go down, go up through time. Could I rewind, watch a flower grow and make it all go slow? Just watch every moment as each moment blows. Cool down. If I tell you what I'm thinking now, could we just rewind the world somehow? 'Cause my heart just won war against my head. Kinda feels like you're so right now. Just walk and talk and breathe it out. Let a world of color flood back in. Cool down, rewind, spend a little time, and I could make it laugh, you could make it rhyme. We could watch the sun go up, go down, go up through time. Cool down, rewind, watch a flower grow, make it all go slow. Just watch every moment as each moment blows. Cool down, cool down, yeah. When I wonder just what might have been had I said yes to you more than friends, would the world seem quite as cold, quite as cold, quite as cold? Would the emptiness I was feeling then slip away with saying yes back when? Would color come and paint my life somehow? Cool down, rewind, spend a little time. I can make it laugh, you can make it rhyme. We could watch the sun go up, go down, go up through time. Cool down, rewind, watch a flower grow, make it all go slow. Just watch every moment as each moment, every moment as each moment blows. 'Cause it blows, yes it blows, well it blows. Cool down. Thank you. I'll just do one more, but I'm not sure which one. Which one did you want?
I wanted the one which the guy had heard that you wrote and posted on MySpace. You may have already played it. I wondered which one it was.
Oh, it was Wrong Mr. Right.
Was
Do
it?
that.
Brilliant.
So you get to sing in this one. So it's easy. So I sing, you're the wrong. You sing, you're the wrong. Mr. Right, wrong Mr. Right. That's the tricky bit. It's tricky for me. You're the wrong, you're the wrong. Mr. Right, wrong Mr. Right. Hold me close, hold me close. Hold me tight, hold me tight. You're the wrong Mr. Right, wrong Mr. Right. Hold me close, hold me close. Hold me tight. So when I played that in Presswich, there's one woman who every time I sang, she's become a thing. She now comes to my gigs. It's great. So when I sang You're the Wrong Mr. Right, hold me close, hold me tight, she shouted, why? Why? And she's so right. Do you know what I mean? Like, why would you want Mr. Wrong Mr. Right to hold you close? But that's where I was at the time. I couldn't explain it to her, but now she comes to my gigs, and now it's become a thing. So if you want to, you can just shout why, because I'm a totally different person now. Now I wouldn't do that now. I just call the band in. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. Drenched with thoughts of you in April showers. Warm with thoughts of you, sweet July. We la 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 around for hours. And and I saw the warmth of you in autumn light. Then you and you warm winter's chills. Life was different then, and you came close to making me all yours. Spring came in and brought with it your thrills. Snows came in and brought your kissing cures. But you're the wrong Mr. Right, wrong Mr. Right. Hold me close. Why? Hold me tight, hold me tight. You're the wrong Mr. Right. Hold me close. Won't you hold me tight? So deep how you got through to me, philosopher. A fool for you, the funny man I fell. You threw the world in front of me, adventurer. And troubadour, the stories you could tell. But you're wrong, Mr. Right. Beautiful, hold me close, hold me tight. You're the wrong Mr. Right. Hold me close, won't you hold me tight? La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. You're the wrong Mr. Right. Hold me close, won't you hold me tight? You're the wrong Mr. Right. Hold me close, won't you hold me tight? You're the wrong Mr. Right, but you're the right Mr. Wrong tonight.
Fantastic. Kirsty Almeida, everyone, thank you very much. And for anybody who would like, I think Kirsty's got both of her albums on sale at the back, is that correct?
I do.
Brilliant. So if you like her music, you're welcome to pick up a copy. Thank you very much.
Always good to turn the mic on, isn't it? So thank you to everyone that's been watching, wherever you are in the world, to our Entrepreneur Social this month. This has been Entrepreneurs for Good's first live event, and it's our December event with Kirsty Almeida. And so I just want to say a big thank you to everyone else and to the Chapter 1 bookstore, and to leave people with some words of wisdom what Kirsty would like people to take away from today's talk.
Only you can do what it is that you're dreaming about doing. No one else can do it the way that you can. And because of that, it's worth you giving it a good go.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone, and good night.